I'm Dad.
And I'm Daughter. And this is Dad and Daughter Kind Things. Cheese! Hey! Aloha, I'm Clinton Aloha Watson. I'm one of your hosts today. I am an actress, singer, performer, dancer, artist, and producer. And today I'm with, like every other day,
And I'm Dad. Hello again, Roger Watson, licensed clinical social worker and therapist. You can find me at Kako'o Mental Health Collective, Hawaii Mental Health Collective.com. Father, dad, husband, coach, mentor, and friend. Again, I'm Dad.
and I'm Daughter. And this is Dad and Daughter Kind Things. Chee! First, we want to mahalo all of you guys for tuning in to our intro episode and our first episode. I was blown away by the amount of responses that we got.
Crazy, right. Don't forget to subscribe again.
Yes.
Leave comments, like, we got comments and texts of love and appreciation for this. I wanted to see more. And then feedback, right,
Yes.
of different things. So, I mean, awesome. But leave comments below. Subscribe, like, find us at.
All the things. You can find us on Instagram at DD Kind Things, and then on YouTube at Dad and Daughter Kind Things, and then Spotify if you want to just listen on your way to work, on anything. You can find us on Spotify at Dad and Daughter Kind Things.
That's all her.
Come on.
Spotify.
Thank you,
is
Roberto
crazy.
Star. We're
YouTube
official
channel.
here. Speaking about official here, today we want to also send out a super huge mahalo to Kako'o Hawaii Mental Health Collective. We are here today in one of their spaces filming this podcast, and we're going to be here as well as our other location filming back and forth. But we're super excited to be here, and we're just super grateful.
Yeah. Huge mahalo. Yeah.
Okay, so happy Pepe Luali, Hau'oli Pepe Luali, Hau'oli Mahina Olelo Hawaii month. We're already coming into this February after these goals. We're moving on. I feel like January was a little bit long for some of us, but if you can't tell, from what we're wearing, we are wearing red. We're coming up to Valentine's Day, and today we're going to be talking about the idea of Valentine's Day, what that means, what the essence of it is in relationships, and how that can affect, or how we can get into these relationships, partnerships, within daddy and daughter relationships, and just partnerships in general.
Yeah, we're going to look at and kind of explore would be love and acceptance.
Yeah.
And from both ends, from dad's side, from daughter's side. We'll just kind of explore all of that and kind of look into how that can be developed into relationships that daughters might look into, what we portray our role as dads, what can we do different, do better, improve on, trying to explore a lot of those things.
Yeah.
This episode 2.
Hello.
Crazy.
Already. I'm so excited. I think exploring as well what daughters you possibly have questions, or if you possibly want to talk about relationships with your dads, or like what that looks like, and how when you're entering this journey of finding partners outside of your family, right? How can you be ma'a and pa'a in who you are, and how can dads, help with that?
And I think that's going to be the key factor, like you shared today, right?
Yeah.
Is how our daughters, our girls, can be secure with themselves, love themselves, which is first, right? Talking this over with my wife, who we've been together 30 plus years and married going on 26, kind of crazy, more than half of our lives for sure. But it's about that, having your daughters grow into individuals that are strong women, but most of all love themselves, because in order to love others or to give love to others, you have to have or you want to have some of that for your own self.
Yeah.
And so we can explore some of those, how maybe we fostered, and not just mom and I, but looking at what we did and what and identify some of those things. Maybe I missed too, right? But yeah, how, we shared a little bit about that, right? And exploring into coming to 2025 in our last episode about who you've become and getting into. But I think, sure enough, it's going through the different thoughts and processes of confidence, self-esteem,
Totally.
and those things to become a young woman and be confident in who you are, not cocky, but confident, so that not just to be able to do things on your own, right, and be independent and stuff like that. That's not, you want to explore those things and have those qualities. What I feel though is that really is getting into then, really loving yourself.
Yeah.
And I think again is what you shared in the last one. I think again we can share that is your journey into becoming and loving yourself. Yeah. Even though you've had the relationships, right? And it's dating as people should do, explore those datings too before you have that soulmate, right, I guess, or you find that person or partner. But again, so going back, talk about that. Talk about that.
It's been a journey and a half, I will say, that I've come to finding myself, loving myself, and being confident in what I have to offer first, knowing that first. I think right now, anyway, I'm on this journey of figuring out what I like. I think that is something that I would want to impart onto somebody, is figure out who you are on your own, and really dive into what you like, who you like, what activities you like, and just little things, a little bit deeper than maybe what's your favorite color, but when you really know yourself, then you're unmoved when you're in relationships. And yes, that's can happen, but for me, I am easily swayed. I have been easily swayed typically because I definitely a lover and want to be with somebody and want to cater to them in a way of showing that they are seen, and then in turn that it manifests into not seeing myself anymore. But
also this kind of what we shared about Kaena, the way she kind of flows with everything. That kind of shows up with what she just talked about, because she'll do everything. She's up to, from the very get-go, trying any kinds of foods, trying any kinds of sports like we talked about, just trying and going and doing. So it, that must be a challenge for you because of you trying to, you're being so open and flexible and so allowing to move, that when you you get into that relationship, and you kind of are just showing up how you feel, where the void is, I guess,
Very
right?
Much.
And trying to support that area of the whole relationship, rather than just kind of being who are.
I am, how I can fill a hole possibly, or what I think someone else wants me to be, instead of showing up fully as who I am. And I think that has been the biggest thing that I have learned recently, and just in the past couple of years, is showing up unapologetically as yourself in every situation, because one, that's what people want to see, and that's how you're going to, which I can get into all of these things later on in different episodes about friendships, on how when you are fully yourself, the people that are going to come into your life are going to be your people, because you're projecting out what you want in.
And I think what then on our side, as men, as boyfriends, and then even just partners, male female partners, because there's that yin and yang, there's that different, the balance, no matter what it is, right? How do we receive that, right? Because as a dad, right, we want to empower our children, and how that might look might be uncomfortable for us to receive, right? I think as in general, when if we're talking our traditional relationships, right, boy and girl,
heteronormative.
So then you get into that and you're kind of exploring where each other fits into that relationship, right? How, and then we go back to traditional sense of what the man should do
Provide,
and
yeah.
provide and be like, right? And so we have to, one thing that kind of comes into it is our ego, right? Ego from both sides.
Both sides, yeah.
Right? Egos can get in the way of an exceptional relationship, and it can get into the way of what we are communicating verbally and non-verbally and receiving that. Because although we want a strong woman and a woman that can support us and so on and so forth, at times we may be portraying negative, projecting negative repercussions against that.
Yeah.
And that can definitely be impact relationships in a very negative way.
Yeah.
And so we talk about awareness and everything, and how do we want that healthy relationship to be like? And it's a partnership, right? In communication and whatnot. But I think again is how men, especially in different cultures, and how men are raised, predominantly loved and provided for by their mothers, right? You
can do no wrong.
You know wrong, you know, we're coddling and do all these things. And some of that can be brought up into, building these habits and these programs of maybe the expectations that we have and what we bring into the relationship. And that in itself can be detrimental, and it can contradicting to what the type of partnership and the type of relationship we want to be in. And then also as dads, how are we shaping that for our daughters?
Yeah.
Right? Because it is that evolution, I think, for me as well, is that you want to, in a sense, hold those daughters back of being who they really are and blossom into the people that they want. But it definitely is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because
it's gonna be
to see the light, there's only so much things that I
want to hear.
Want to hear, want to see, right? In the way a young woman is growing becoming into their relationship, and that sort of the arena of dating and flirting and just dating period, right? Rather than you don't just get into a relationship. You date in order to learn.
Yep.
And then that's definitely different for
you. Yeah, it's been you talk about like finding that soulmate. Found someone pretty early on in your life.
Yeah, and I definitely was lucky, right? And in a sense of, and blessed for that. But I think on both sides of it, like we were just people that were in relationships and we didn't date.
Yeah, my mom and my dad.
And but dating can be portrayed as so many different things.
But I agree that dating is helpful to then figure out what works for you, what doesn't, what you like, what you don't like. And I'm definitely a dater. I'm definitely like somebody who likes to, I love people, right? And so like I like to meet people, I like to build connections. And I'm someone who, I know that I'm very protected. This is a little bit of a tangent from my ancestors and from my angels, that I'm not in them for so very long because I move forward in who I am to then move forward in relationships. And I think me, quote unquote, dating, I think not super early on, but around 16. How was that like for you as my dad?
Well, also I'm going to say this is a time that is okay for you to be dating.
Exactly.
Because of the other things that you're involved with, right? Some big things, right? So
in this time of my life,
yes,
time is very for sure.
So it's not like kind of was dating since she was just whatever,
right, be real.
Like the relationship she was in, and she had relationships, in high school, and then just recently and out of high school. Going to New York was a big thing that I had no really a lot
or
of knowledge.
jurisdiction.
Yeah, it was just kind of just trust. Okay, mom knows and all this kind of stuff, right?
If mom knows, then dad can
And at
figure it
that
out.
time, that was definitely a different part, even for me.
Yeah.
Like just trust. I was just like, okay, trust and pray. This should be safe, for sure. That definitely was a big thing, and even for me to just let her explore or actually express that I'm okay with her going. It was a big thing for me to accept and have to reveal and give her the confidence that she can go with blessing,
Yeah.
right? But going back, right? So you had your relationships and like high school stuff is kind of like what high school stuff should be,
Yeah.
right? Lehu and I were as long as they were doing what they're supposed to be doing and they're prioritizing their things, it was okay to have relationship. Now your sister had one younger than I thought maybe you would have, right? Coming into the freshman. However, that was definitely a blessing as well for
Wonderful
both of them.
experience, yeah, for them.
And though your brother hasn't gotten into really sort of relationship
That
or
part of
boyfriend
his life,
girlfriend,
yeah.
but
I
we're
don't think he
definitely
will for a bit.
yeah, we're definitely as parents we're like, okay,
Open.
it's healthy to explore those things because of some of our experience with others getting into then becoming young women into
Yeah.
college or into that, and then really just getting into unhealthy relationships.
Yeah. What I want to get into actually is what we kind of talked about before is want to speak to like these younger girls that are possibly going into these relationships with social media being so accessible in our day and age, and like these relationships are portrayed in a certain way. I want to talk about this idea again of how can dads foster, how can our parents foster this confidence in your daughters,
Definitely.
in us, because that is something that I think is the foundation in to not look for validation outside. How can you get this validation inside of the house? And I think that possibly can start with Valentine's Day, being a dad with your daughter.
Yeah.
How does that look like?
Yeah. So as a dad, right, speaking from like one, we want to talk about love and acceptance. How can we model that so that our daughters, like one, we talked about confidence and loving themselves, but then who they look for into wanting to explore a relationship, whether it be physical, right, emotional, right,
Yeah.
spiritual, those things that matter. So physical will start with ourselves and what we portray, and how we manage things and express things to them. But what we want to do is like you be there, right? You be present, like we talked about, and then use the time to show them that they are appreciated. Getting cards, daddy-daughter dates, right? And not getting to too much of the materialistic side of things. It's the thought, right? And the process is
1000%.
the things of again, I think this will show up time and time in our episodes is
Yeah.
being present.
Being present, asking questions.
Right.
Yeah.
So, as much as kind of shared in the last one that, my presence wasn't around in a certain extent, I believe though, is that, you look at key moments in our year, in the calendar year to show up and to really pay attention, right, to that. So with the little activities throughout the whole year, it doesn't have to be Valentine's. And I'm a big believer in these things like Christmas, gift giving. You give throughout the whole year, right? Like you Valentine throughout the whole year.
Yeah.
And although the day comes to, and I believe it as reminders for everything to be like, okay, this is a reminder to then love your loved ones and
Yeah.
show appreciation and acceptance and whatnot to them.
Yeah.
However, the act of doing throughout and promoting it throughout the years.
What does that look like?
Yeah. So cards, right? Texts every now and then out of nowhere can bring smiles to individuals. Words of affirmation, little quotes and stuff that you see. We talk about social media, right? And all of us can get caught into social media. Social media is addicting. What you want to do is then build trust in many of those things, right? We were big on earning, right? You do, you get. And so I believe like we allowed you guys to get on social media pretty young. We were on their accounts. And they knew that we were going to be on their account, so we could look at it. Why didn't we get any resistance? I think it was just really in the trust part, but you can speak to that because there are many that will never give up their passwords, their anything to their parents. And why? I don't know, but I think it comes down to the trust relationship that goes on in between parents and children.
I think that was really big for me. I learned really early on that what trust was because my parents were very open about everything. I think you guys talked to us about real things, therefore I was able to talk to you about real things, and so I think that comes from a parent perspective, is being open with your child, and then for that allows the child to just like think that everything is quote unquote possible, and if something bad happens, but not trying to hide, right? I think possibly kids can get into this, especially on social media, this like idea of like needing to hide, or like I'm not supposed to do this, or like my parents don't like this in a sense, but to be open with one another. And in doing so, like with you guys being open with us, I feel like I've learned to be open with my siblings, to like my younger siblings, to then open up to me about relationships. And there are so many great things that you talked about whether or not we throughout the year. I think my dad had very high expectations for possibly my partner, because on Valentine's Day, even when I was away in college, I got a package, right? And so I think that is something that we can do that is easily accessible for you to show that appreciation. But I think...
and it takes time and effort is a big part. And shoot, if you miss it, still send it or still do it. I did want to go back to the social media thing too, because it's a very big thing. It's an agreement, right? That you have before things happen, that this is okay as long as, right? As long as this or that. And so, you guys would set up like ghost accounts or all that kind of stuff, right?
Spam accounts.
Kind of those things, right? You guys, whatever. But I think most of it was, that
what's okay and what's not okay.
This is okay, right? And having the conversations with it. It's being involved, right? It's the partnership again that you have with your children. And it's not just what I say, right? You want to empower, so we want to have them be able to show that they can earn it, right? And you prove to us that you're capable of, and that's huge, because parents, we're still protecting, but we cannot protect for their whole life. And so we utilize these experiences to build character, build values, build structure within their lives. And we cannot be afraid of it, and afraid of change. And that's a big deal. Like change from our baby girl to a young woman is, it's like, wow, it's different. It's just different. I mean, from clothes to bathing suits and all this kind of stuff. It's like, oh my goodness.
Especially being in Hawaii.
It's like, whoo. but you know, we can look at it and be like, okay, that's my girl, in a sense, right? And not to put them down into because they're doing certain things. And I believe there's some of culture that comes into play with that.
Totally.
Shame is another thing that we can be programmed with on how we view
Interact.
things, right? And things that are different for our own selves or individuals. You know, we would tell them that, and they know, they're like, oh my goodness, there's like everybody's watching. You know, it's still a proud thing, right? We're a proud family and a proud name for us as a nucleus and as a family in Zohana. And that we would reiterate that there are going to be always eyes. There'll be somebody that you're going to interact, especially on our island. And sure enough, they would always like, oh my goodness, oh that's
I could not go a day without seeing somebody that they knew.
right. But that's the village, right? That's the community and the village that we trusted, and others trust in us to then look out for our children.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not about like, oh, you cannot tell my kid this or that. But we also can then learn from that and provide them with an explanation of where that might be coming from these certain individuals.
Yeah.
You know?
I think, social media, in our day and age, I would caution looking to social media as an example of what a relationship should look like.
Very true.
I think on TikTok especially,
you can edit everything.
Yeah, right? there are these big celebrations of what love is supposed to look like, or big balloons, that ideal relationship or ideal expectation of what real love is supposed to look like.
Yeah, because everything can be edited.
Exactly.
In the whole thing.
And I'm super grateful to have people in my life that model love, and that model love in a way that is inclusive. What love is within a lot of my family members, and some people might not have that. And so I do think there are really great examples of what relationships should look like on social media, and you can find that. But to know within first what love is for you, what you're looking for, why that is, I think asking these questions to yourself of what love is, what are you looking for, and then what are you looking for, and do you have that in yourself already? I think building trust within yourself, building love within yourself, is a way to have a relationship with someone else that is equal. When we talk about partnership, we talk about being equal to one another, not looking for somebody to fill another hole, but to have two holes to make a bigger circle, not having a half and a half. And I think that comes from within and finding yourself. And you can do that alongside someone. I'm not saying that you can't do that alongside someone, but having a foundation into who you are, what you're looking for, why that is, and then going into it as you're also hosting an interview, right? Like knowing that what you have to offer is more than enough, and that you won't be maybe somebody you're not for everybody. You're for a specific type of people, and you only want those type of people anyway, right? And so I think in my experiences in relationships, I've come to this understanding that that I am what I have to offer. I'm not for everybody. You're not on the same vibration as everybody. And to not bring yourself down just because somebody else is not for you. It's not on that same frequency. It's not on that same level as you are. Doesn't mean it's wrong or right, bad or good, but you're just not for that person.
Or it doesn't mean that person wrong or bad.
Exactly.
Either, right?
That person is just on their own journey, and we can be thankful to have been encounter with that person, and then holamua, and then moving forward. And so I think fostering that into our women in this generation is super important, and for us as girls to go on that journey ourselves as well, because at some point, no matter what you have gone through in your family nucleus, it is up to you and to us to then look at how do we want to what are you looking for in a partner, and how are you going to show up? And so I think my parents did a great job, and with all of us, showing that example and then allowing us to go into our own endeavors and then explore and find out what that was.
Yeah, that's cool, because that's not what I mean. There are ideals of how we would, and the relationships that we would want them to be in, or who to be with, and those things. However, it doesn't. We can guide them to those things.
Yeah.
But the choice that they make is the choice that they make, right? And
being okay with that.
Yeah, how do you get
how
okay
do you get
with
that?
it?
Yeah, how do you get there?
Is another point, and that we can talk about as in other areas. However, when you're talking about relationships too, is that relationships take work.
Yeah.
This takes work, right? And it does take presence, being, all those things that we kind of mentioned throughout all of our conversations, is how to then get the better part of ourselves within the relationship. There are arguments, there are disagreements. This all comes with partnerships and relationships, and understanding one another, human behavior, what we like, what we don't like. How do we become compatible with one another? The same for daughter, parent, children. It takes work. And in all of it, right, is that it's not just all hunky-dory out there, really, but you can have thriving relationships, long-term relationships, by, like anything else, it's through work. And hard work.
I would say that, and I would also say that when you're finding these relationships, there should be a level of ease to it. I think especially in our society here in Hawaii too, in the high school girls as well, and younger and older, it's this idea that we have to work so hard for this person to want us, or to like us, or to make it work. And sometimes it's not supposed to work. And I think with this hard work, when it comes to conflict, is a good conversation to have, because how do you deal with conflict, right? And then how can we move forward in conflict? Can you move forward in conflict? How can we have those open conversations? And I think those open conversations happen within your family. How are you exposed to that? And I think also open conversations with your daughter about dating, about these different topics that are possibly taboo, or like you're not maybe used to, or that you're not open to having a conversation yet, but how can you as dads kind of go into those conversations and not make it a relationship from a daughter's perspective just to go to their moms, right? How can you as a dad be present in those conversations as well? How from my perspective, or from yours?
I think initially what you talked about in the last episode is that you involve, right? But with that, if our daughter is to involve us as dads and men, is we have to be careful of our emotions and what we portray. And, I don't want to tell dad because, or, this or that. I think also what your mom did a good job of is slowly involving me as well, right? And involving me into
conversation.
These things, right?
Totally.
Of course, there are things that, right, what is taboo to talk about? Yeah, there's things, of course, right? But one thing, we were sure of that you were gonna
eventually gonna happen, right?
Eventually gonna happen. Having those talks and those, of, if you're gonna love yourself, right, then you're gonna be protective of the things that you're gonna be giving up to somebody, right? And that's very important, right? And very important to what that is. And then again, so coming back to that love and acceptance, is that we be, for dads, fathers out there, young fathers, older fathers, is that you be that strength, that solid figure that they can look to, our young women can look to, for that love and acceptance, so they're not searching for that for any other area. That can be dangerous for them and can be very unhealthy. And that's a goal, right? So you come into this fatherhood is you create these goals of how you would like to see and be like, but also what you would like to have and foster for your children, your daughter, your sons to be like, or to end up being.
Yeah.
I think that's a very like that message of how to.
Yeah.
And that can go in many different ways and how you can learn to. But vision is a very important part and aspect of holding true to things to become.
Yeah.
Same thing with goals, like we mentioned last episode. How do you achieve those goals? Is holding on to certain visions of
who you want to be.
that. Right, and then trust in the journey and how to become and overcome the things that might be in your path. But
and I think not only are you, as a younger father, as an older father, just representing this protection and this idea of what of this armor, like this protector, but also showing up for your daughters emotionally as well. I think that can be sometimes what people forget when you're becoming a dad, is that you want to protect your daughter, you want to protect your child, but then showing up for them emotionally as well. And that comes with these asking questions, that comes with being present with them, that comes with knowing about what they're doing and how their day was, little things. And I think I'm thinking about younger fathers when you said that, of my cousins having kids now, and like these people coming into our family. I think about my nieces, right? And being there for them as a whole entity, as a fullness of yourself as well. I think that asking questions of who you are, who do you like, can go for any age and can go for dads and daughters, of who you want to be, who you be, how you want to portray yourself to your loved one, right? And this idea of duality, as we talked about before, of this feminine and masculine energy, ku and hina. How can you have both of those? How can you show up with both of those in your everyday life? And yes, sometimes you're going to need more of one, sometimes you're going to need more of one, but learning what that looks like for yourself so that you can bring that forward when you need to. If you possibly need to do a scolding, if you possibly need to show up a little bit more ku and like ku, and knowing how to do that, but then having that hina to soften you, or to be grounded for you, and that goes into culture. That is really important to me and important to this month as well, as we're leaning into Mahina Olelo Hawaii. And I think bringing your fullness into these relationships that we're going into is a really big part of sustaining and having this healthy relationship. So as we go into this Valentine's, as you talk about the how-tos for dads, I want to go back to the how-tos for girls as well. When we talk about Valentine's Day and what we want to see, how we can talk about these conversations with our dads. Like I said in the last one, sometimes we, maybe no matter how old you are, need to push ourselves out of our comfort zone to have conversations with our dads about relationships, knowing that, again, that they want to know, knowing again that they want to be a part of your life if you allow them in. And this is not, this is a very broad explanation. Everybody's relationships are different, but starting with a foundation of love and grace, and that if you want that relationship, you go get it. That goes for anybody. If you want that relationship, you show up and you ask questions and you be there. And then if they show up for you and they show up with you in that way, then that will tell you what you need to know. So I would say that would make me cry. That go out of your comfort zone. Talk about maybe a date you've had. I just told my dad about a date I've had, and ask if they want to go out for Valentine's Day. You know, what are your plans? What are you doing with mom? Or what are you doing with dad? Or what are you doing with your partner? Right? And speaking about where you are in your life, in love, in relationships, and how your dad can maybe impart some knowledge or impart some wisdom. I'm very lucky with my dad. Has a lot of that, especially when I'm going through things. Free therapy session. Thank you. But having these conversations that can open up vulnerability between the two is something that we can how to in this version and this bubble of life. This aspect.
Yeah. I think to go back a little bit is that when you're talking about ku'uhina, you're talking about even within our own selves, right?
Within our own selves.
So there's
Everybody has
ku'uhina with that balance between the relationship, but even for our own self, is to have that right more of in how you show up in different things. And
Ku'uhina, for you guys who don't know, is your masculine and your feminine. They're both deities in Hawaiian culture.
But that yin and yang, whatever it is, how you show up within, everybody has, right, that in them. Everybody has the potential and the ability to be this person that they want to be and in the relationships that they want to have.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I heard a quote recently, and it was, your biggest wound, your greatest gift is right by your quote unquote biggest wound. And so my just to share, maybe to help you guys, is not wanting to be seen, trying to be invisible. And so, but my greatest gift, I know, is now allowing myself to be seen, to go out there. And so when you talk about, it's like we are all capable, but sometimes you have to go dig into that to then find your greatest gift.
We do come into the world with the potential to be the greatest person that we can be. In the life, we build these programs and all these things that come into our influences that influence us to be different, you know, and at times through our journey we have to go back to that potential that we came into this world of being, right?
Very
and
much.
having
Very much.
but you know, there's a lot to kind of digest within this. Again, we could really revisit a lot within this episode that we talked about. If you go ahead and leave comments and questions and you know, feedback, we can definitely revisit many of that in our next episode or maybe episodes to come. You know, as we talk about a lot of things, you know, we could then venture to different, you know, subjects and topics. But again, like in this month of February and Valentine's being the sort of that focus in relationships, love and acceptance, what are our plans? What are our plans for?
What are our intentions?
You know, Mom and I are gonna go to a show that was kind of created early on by her cousins.
Cute.
You know, which is great because, you know, Mom's not that sort of planner to plan ahead too far ahead.
Not too much.
Too far ahead of what she wants.
Before.
You know, but you know, definitely, you know, do you have plans at all right now?
I wanted to do a little Galentine's thing. It kind of got put on the back burner because I'm a little bit busy, but I do want to have possibly just like a little picnic with some of the people that I love so much, that are in my circles, because I am here and my family's in Vegas.
Yeah, Galentine's is perfect.
Galentine's.
Valentine's. You know, you celebrate your love and relationships in many different ways, and it doesn't have to be with the partner or husband or wife, but it can be with people that you love, and you want to show love to, vice versa, right? You haven't seen in a long time, and so you know, we challenge you to get out there to
Show
get
your
that.
love?
Yeah,
Yeah.
make that for yourself. I think, kind of hit it. Like, whatever you want to have, you go after and you go get it. Relationships, goals, jobs, wealth, all that. Like, what you want, you go. It takes work.
It's yours if you want it.
Yeah.
It's there if you want it. You just gotta go and get it.
So again, episode 2, man, Valentine's,
Yes.
love, relationships, acceptance, being your love loving your.
Thank you so much for watching this episode. Again, we're talking about this episode about Valentine's Day, love, presence, being, confidence within yourself, ku and hina, duality, going after what you want to go after. Please, like my dad said, leave comments about what you want to hear more of. If you want to hear me talk about confidence in my journey, girl, I can go off with you, okay? If you want to hear dad talk about what he has kind of experienced and like his experiences with these daughters and kids that he's worked with as well, how we can go through that journey as well. Leave those comments. We want to hear from you guys. Remember to subscribe to this channel. We have like a good amount of subscribers, which is amazing to me.
It's crazy.
Subscribe, turn the notifications on. We're probably going to film another episode this month because you guys love us so much. Thank you. And make sure to follow our Instagram at ddkindtings, and then listen to this podcast on Spotify at Dad and Daughter Kind Tings. We can get a TikTok soon enough, but stay tuned. Mahalo, Dad. Thank you for sharing all of your knowledge and mana'o.
Yeah,
Happy
for
almost
sure.
Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's.
I just want to mahalo my dad for always showing up for us on Valentine's Day, for always bringing like a little rose, a chocolate, even at 5 a.m. before we even went to school in high school. I always had some kind of something on Valentine's Day. So thank you, Dad.
You're welcome. So get out there, do what you can, plan for it, work on it. But mahalo as always, for sure. We'll see you at the next episode. Take care. Malamat ohana.
You're what?
I'm Dad.
And I'm Daughter. And this is
Daddy and
Daughter
Kind
Things.
Things. Oiho.
Ui.